Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello dear friends, welcome back to Spiritism and the Media here on Kardec Radio. Today I'd like to bring a text from the Spirit Review 1859 by Allan Kardec. It is in November. The name of the text is Should We Publish Everything the Spirits Say? So the idea here is for us to read slowly this text because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages here. So maybe we won't be able to read and to talk about that all today, but we can come back the following weeks to this text because I think it's important not only for us to think about if we should publish everything the spirits say, but also if we should publish everything that the incarnate spirits say. We can make this comparison, and Kardec also, in the beginning, he makes his comparison in this text, because we need to remember that we are here incarnate spirits. So when we talk about this behavior of spirits, we are spirits too. We're always spirits. So we need to think about that and to bring that to our daily life as well. So let's see what Kardec has to say here. So this question was addressed to us by one of our correspondent members. We answer that as below. Would that be good to publish everything that men say and think? So he's starting with this question. So someone have that question if we should publish everything that the spirits say, and then Kardec says, should we publish everything that men say and think? So not only Kardec is talking about what men say, but what men think. So he goes a step further. And he says, those who may have a notion of Spiritism, however superficial it may be, know that the spiritual world is composed of all of those who have left their visible envelope on earth. So spirits, we are spirits incarnate here on earth, and the ones who go to the spirit realm are spirits who were incarnate here on earth, and they are now discarnate. So that's what Kardec is saying here. By having undressed the carnal person, not all of them have, for that reason, dressed the mantle of the angels. So it's also a point that the spirits tell us in the Spirit's book. So it's not because we discarnate, it's not because we become a discarnate spirit that suddenly we are angels, suddenly we are perfect. No, we keep being the same person, the same spirits that we were here on earth. So it's not because someone discarnate that person now is an angel. So it's still the same person. When we discarnate, we will be still the same person from that moment. And maybe later we can improve ourselves, maybe later we will improve ourselves ideally, but it doesn't mean that it's something that happens very fast, because the same way that we are evolving here on earth, we keep evolving in the spiritual realm. So it's not because, for example, when I was 17 and I turned 18, now I was a very wise and good person just because I became 18. No, so the same thing when they discarnate. It's not because we discarnate that from one moment to the other we become good spirit, evolved spirit and perfect spirit. No, we still have to follow our path. And he says here, thus, they are spirits of all degrees of knowledge and ignorance, morality and immorality. That is what we cannot lose sight of. Let us not forget that among the spirits, as with human beings, they are frivolous, reckless, joking spirits, pseudo-wise, vain and proud of an incomplete knowledge, hypocritical, malevolent, and what would seem inexplicable to us. Had we not known the physiology of this world, they are sensual, villain, and perverse spirits who drag in the mud. So what Kardec is saying, that the same way that we have those good and bad spirits here incarnate, we have those good and bad spirits discarnate. So when we are talking about the communication of the spirits, we need to be aware that we may receive good communications, but we may also receive bad communications. And if we go to the book Heaven and Hell, the second part of that book, we have different communications that Kardec received from different degrees of spirit. So that's a good example for us to go and to see. And we may say, okay, Kardec published those communications. Yes, he did, but he published those communications because we could learn with that, and Kardec was not deceived by those communications. If we go to the book, the Medium's book, the last part, one of the last parts of the book, we have some apocryphal communications that Kardec published. So those were spirits trying to deceive Kardec, but Kardec could see that they weren't the spirits they were telling they were. The communications weren't good, but he published that in the Medium's book for us to learn with that advice, saying this is not the communication from this spirit. He's pretending to be this spirit, and we can see that because of this, and that. So that's a way that Kardec knew that, and he published that because he wanted us to learn with those communications. But what Kardec is saying here, that many times we may receive some communications from spirits in the mediumistic groups or some other kinds of ways of receiving the communication, and we may be deceived by them. It may be a spirit that is saying, oh, it's St. Augustine, it is St. Francis, and we believe that without analyzing the words, and we go and publish. We go and publish a book through saying that this book was channeled by that spirit. It was this book, this message is from that spirit, but this doesn't mean that it is from that spirit. You need to analyze all the messages that we receive. So that's what the connection that we can make that here to our daily lives. It's not all the books that we are going to publish. It's not all the message that we are going to spread. We can see here, for example, today with all this fake news. What happens with the fake news? People receive some news that they are supposed to be real news, but they are fake, and they believe in that, and they spread that. They go and forward that message to many people on social media, on WhatsApp group, or text messages, emails. And so if it happens here, the same can happen with these communications from the spirit. So that's what I told, that we can make these connections. It's not because we receive a communication from a spirit that it is a good communication, because we don't know if the spirit is a good spirit or not. We need to analyze that. And when we receive some communications from incarnate spirits here on earth, we also need to analyze that before we believe in that, before we start spreading that, because it's very dangerous for us to spread some communications that may be dangerous, may hurt other people. It may be fake, may be something with a hateful message behind that. So we need to analyze, no matter if this comes from the incarnate spirits or the discarnate spirits. And Kardec says here, so he keeps saying, besides, as there is on earth, there are good creatures, humane, benevolent, enlightened, and endowed by supreme virtues. However, since our world is not in first place nor last, although closer to the last than to the first, it then results that the world of the spirits encompasses beings more advanced intellectually and morally than our most enlightened individuals, and others in situation inferior to the most inferior people. So what he's saying here, he is that, okay, because Earth is still like we are in the world of, this is a world of trials and expiations, going to the world of regeneration, so it's still going to the middle of this evolution of the world. So we can think that the spirits that are here, us, we are more closer to the lower spirits than to the high elevated spirits here incarnate. But in the spiritual realm, we know that there are elevated spirits there helping us here on earth. If we see all the spirits that helped Kardec with the codification of Spiritism, they are spirits, high elevated spirits. So they were here at that time. Many of them, they are still here helping us. So they are elevated spirits, and those communications, they are good. Those communications, they enlighten us, they help us. But you need to have in mind that many of the communications that we may receive, they may come from the spirits that are here closer to us. Because if we go to the medium's book, we can see, we can teach, and we can learn how to connect to the more elevated spirit. So it's not that easy. It's not from one moment to the other that we will start receiving communications or inspirations by the elevated spirits if we are not having a lifestyle that is compatible with good spirits. So there are many points that if we study in the medium's book, we will better understand that. But here what Kardec is saying basically is that be aware, because we may receive good and bad communications at the same time. That's what I wanted to bring that here for us to see. Be aware here on earth. We need to be aware because the same thing, we may receive good and bad communications from the incarnate spirits, the ones that are here with us. So it's always good for us to analyze any communications that we receive, no matter if they are from the spirit world or from our physical world here. And so there are more pages for us to see, but I'll bring that in the following week. And now, as usually, I would like to bring the book Happy Life by Divaldo Franco and by the Spirit Joana de Angelis. Open randomly here, page 182. When a person opts for an upright life, a relentless inner struggle ensues. Like two armies clashing on the mental battlefield, non-stop confrontations rage on. The usual world, selfishness, pride, violence, and ambition try to defeat the new combatants. Love for one's neighbor, humility, peace, and selflessness. The person feels anguished and torn. The light of divine inspiration, however, shines on the historic battlefield, enlightening the soul and encouraging it to persist in its higher purposes. Invest your best efforts in life's battles and don't surrender. Each day of resistance is a battle won, drawing you closer to final victory. Thank you so much for your company. May God bless all of us, and see you next week.